Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome back to our channel once again. There is something which happened in this country in 2022 which most Kenyans are yet to understand how it happened. Let me ask you this question. Do you have an idea or do you know how William Ruto ended up defeating Raila Odinga in 2022? Because the truth of the matter is that most Kenyans had predicted that Raila Odinga was going to win the presidency. All opinion polls projected Raila Odinga was going to win. But today, William Ruto is the sitting president of the Republic of Kenya. How it happened, most Kenyans still don't know. But the truth of the matter is that there are certain mistakes, there are certain blunders which Raila Odinga committed towards the election. Some of them were very basic, but Raila Odinga ignored them. I'm seeing Kalonzo Musyoka and Fred Matiang'i also ignoring certain things, which is going to cost them the presidency in 2027 if they are not careful. Let me take you back to that 2022, how Raila Odinga messed up towards the end of the campaign. Number one, Raila Odinga decided to let Ruto own the economic story. Ruto came up with a narrative, the hustler versus the dynasties. Then he came up with something he was calling bottom-up approach. That narrative carried the day. Number two, Raila Odinga's strategy for Mount Kenya misfired. If Mount Kenya had just voted for Raila Odinga, let's say 25% of them only, today Raila Odinga would be comfortably sitting at State House. But Raila Odinga assumed, just the way I'm seeing Kalonzo and Matiang'i also assuming certain things, that Mount Kenya was automatically going to vote for them because of Uhuru Kenyatta. And then there is the big elephant. They turn out in their strongholds. ODM in particular committed a very grave mistake when it messed up the nominations in their strongholds. That's how the turnout in Nyanza was suppressed. And of course, there was also the baggage of the handshake. Most people had there was also the effect. There was also another aspect of the baggage occasioned by the handshake. Because Raila Odinga had always been known to be a reformist. Working with Uhuru Kenyatta was counterproductive, but they ignored them because they assumed that Raila Odinga had always owned the people. He only lacked the deep state, which they hoped Uhuru Kenyatta at that time was going to provide. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing certain mistakes which Kalonzo Musyoka and Fred Matiang'i are ignoring. The truth of the matter is that in 2022, if the opposition were to front either Matiang'i or Kalonzo to face Ruto, they can easily defeat William Samoei Arap Ruto. I'm talking of a situation where one of them is nominated. Can they agree to that? But even before they agree to that, in this video, I want to tell you certain things which they are ignoring, but it's going to cost them. Before we do that, for those who are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click that subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to go straight to some of these issues, which for me are very critical, but Matiang'i and Kalonzo are ignoring them. The first thing they are ignoring is the voter registration. There is this photo of Millicent Omanga, which has been trending online. And most Kenyans were like, Millicent Omanga missed the point. But the fact that Kenyans are talking about it means she actually achieved the objective which she wanted to achieve with that photo. Mobilizing the voters, but targeting the Gen Zs. In this country, 2027 presidential elections will be determined by the young people. But if these young people are not registering to vote, how will they determine that election? I had expected Fred Matiang'i and Kalonzo Musyoka to stop whatever they are doing in the name of rallies. Because for me, those rallies don't add any value as at now. And focus on how they can rally their supporters to turn up in large numbers and vote. And when I talk of their supporters, I'm talking of their support bases. Kalonzo should go to Ukambani and convince any Ukambani resident without an ID to look for an ID. And the ones with ID to ensure that they are registered as voters ahead of 2027. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody will vote for Kalonzo Musyoka, will vote for Fred Matiang'i if their strongholds are not turning up to vote. Remember, there's this story that William Ruto is actually planning to use northern Kenya to rig the elections in 2027. So to counter that, there must be real numbers. That's number one. They are ignoring it. They are not making any effort towards mobilizing their supporters to register for votes. Number two, and this is normally very, very important, grassroots networks. And I think it is high time for them to expand beyond their base strongholds. The truth is, Kalonzo is a Kamba. Matiang'i is a Kisii. Ruto is a Kalenjin. Rigathi is a Kikuyu. Luos, Raila. Let me take the case of ODM party. By last election, ODM party had existed for several years as a national party. And during that period, ODM party actually had a very strong grassroots networks. ODM party structure is structured in a way that their officials begins at the polling station. So that in any part of this country, if you go, you'll find ODM party officials at any polling station there. Sometimes I wonder if ODM fails to, whenever ODM fails to get, let's say, 20 votes per polling station, because they have officials in those regions. Then it moves to constituency, to ward, I think, to constituency, to county, up to national level. KANU also had that network. Wiper has been in existence for several years. But today, I'm 100% sure that if I were to ask Kalonzo to give me the name of the Secretary General of Wiper, the Secretary of Wiper in my Nyakach constituency, he might not tell me. That person might not even exist. Because I attend events in my Nyakach constituency. I've never seen anybody standing in the name of Wiper, just saying, Mimi, ni mtu wa Kalonzo, 2027, let us vote for Kalonzo because he stood with Baba. So they need to create those networks. Those networks comes in handy, especially when votes are expected to be protected. In the last election, for example, one of the issues which really affected Raila Odinga was because of agents. So in my own estimations, these guys need to come up with an elaborate strategy on how they're going to have grassroots networks. Jubilee Party probably has networks, but not really fully, because William Ruto disrupted them during the last election. So they should be embarking on creating that grassroots networks. Number three, and I think this is a major problem for them, there is a messaging, or do I call it narrative gap? Just like I was explaining, in the last election, William Ruto had his hustler narrative. In 2007, Raila Odinga had his change. They need a rallying call. they need. So far, they don't have a rallying call. Matiang'i does not have a rallying call. Kalonzo does not have a rallying call. There's a very nice rallying call, one term. But when you talk of one term, who owns that? Rigathi Gachagua. We also have the latest one, which is Cousins. Who owns it? Rigathi Gachagua. Matiang'i came up with hope, but it is not being sold. It's not being sold. It's getting lost somewhere. What about Kalonzo? What is his rallying call for 2027? Zero. There's no way you can win the presidency without a rallying call, my friends. So they are ignoring it, but very, very important. If I were them, I'd sit with their communications team and figure out a rallying call which they can start using alongside their supporters so that Kenyans can start understanding it. The fourth thing they are ignoring, and they'll regret because they're assuming, is the Gen Z. These guys have failed to sustain the Gen Z momentum. The Gen Zs would have easily supported Raila Odinga, but Raila Odinga failed them. Raila Odinga betrayed them, according to them. So Kalonzo Musyoka played according to their script up to now. But Kalonzo has failed to sustain that narrative. The Gen Zs currently, you can't say Kalonzo owns the Gen Zs. The reason why Matiang'i is running for the presidency is because he was under pressure from the young people to come and save the country. Today in this country, you can't say that the Gen Zs are now identifying themselves with Freddie Matiang'i. It's not the case. Why? Because they've failed to align themselves. They've failed to align their politics to those of Gen Zs. You saw what happened on Sunday in that church and how they did it for one of their own, Kaloma boy. That's a strong statement, which means for them, they can decide to do their things without the involvement of the political class. And now they've accepted that fact that the political class are not with them. Kalonzo is not really putting himself forward to them. In fact, as we speak, the guy you can claim to be associating with them is Babu Owino. And lastly, you see, one of the things which made William Ruto very unpopular was the alleged Kenya Kwanza failures. These were attributed to several things. One of them was the fact that William Ruto made a lot of promises to Kenyans. He failed to deliver most of those promises. Today, William Ruto is convincing Kenyans that he's doing a lot because he almost went home during the Gen Z protest because of the alleged failures. So he's been trying to fix some of those mistakes. I had expected Kalonzo, I'd expected Matiang'i to focus on Kenya Kwanza failures. List them. If it's SHA, make noise about it. Look for your vocal members of parliament who are good in those specific areas. If it's education, if for example it's education sector, identify someone like Babu Owino. If it's for example health, identify someone who is a medic who understands the issues around SHA, the challenges, and then amplify them. Currently, they are not amplifying them. Even the issue of unemployment, they are not amplifying. So which means they are not taking advantage of what God has provided to them for free, which is Kenya Kwanza failures. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, but if you are to convince me, these are some of the 5 things Kalonzo and Matiang'i are ignoring. But they are very important. If they don't fix them, I don't see them winning the presidency in 2027. So if you're close to them, tell them that I've said that they should focus more on voter registration. They should focus on creating grassroots networks. They should focus on their messaging or the narrative. They should focus on how to win the Gen Zs legitimately, and importantly, highlight some of the Jubilee failures. Until next time, this is Lee Makwiny. Bye-bye.